Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with Casey Arority, who is my kindred spirit, fellow positive discipline, parent educator, and coach, and also of the Joyful Courage podcast. Thank you so much, Casey, for joining us here today.
Oh, I'm so glad that you invited me, Megan. And I'm a fellow Pacific Northwesterner.
That's right. Awesome. Great to have you here today. And I asked Casey to talk a little bit about parenting as a practice. So from your point of view, what's important? Why is it important for parents to think of parenting as a practice?
I love this question, Megan. And I feel like it's definitely at the foundation of the work that I'm currently doing with parents, because when we think about practice, right? When we think about, being on a sports team or even like a yoga practice, there's this spaciousness for learning and growing and making mistakes and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. There's never any perfect when we think about something as a practice. And so when we transfer that over in the context of parenting, I think it is so freeing for us to recognize that each and every day, each and every moment is an opportunity to practice. And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we don't.
That is so
right?
true. And I love the idea of spaciousness. And I think that's an amazing way to start 2017. So often I know when we mess up personally or parents in our communities mess up, it's kind of that shaming feeling of wanting to hide in the closet. But rather seeing all of our parenting, everyday interactions, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's all part of this spaciousness of growth. I love that.
Well, and I even think, yes, and I feel like a lot of the people that I work with, and I'm sure that's the same for you and your community, Megan, maybe they found positive discipline or positive parenting or peaceful parenting or whatever label you want to put on it and said, yes, this lands for me, this resonates, and this is how I'm going to parent. And then, 5 minutes later, they're dealing with a 3-year-old on the floor and they flip and they respond in a way that later on they think, oh, I'm a failure. There's all this self-doubt. I don't think this is for me. I can't. And it breaks my heart, right? Because we as human beings move towards what is familiar. And we have had a long life before we have children, right? And we've had experiences and we've had relationships and we've really developed patterns and ways of being, ways of keeping ourselves safe or feeling like we have control when things get overwhelming. And those patterns have served us perhaps over time. And now we have these little people that are triggering these feelings of not being safe or not being in control. And so we slip into these patterns that aren't necessarily helpful in the context of parenting. So we move towards what's familiar. And for me, when I think about practice, I think about how can I teach my body something new, right? How can my familiar become, oh, wow, you're having a hard time. I'm starting to feel heat in my body. This is an opportunity for me to ground down, to feel my feet on the floor, to open my chest, right? I want that to become familiar versus, right? And where we can go when we get triggered by our kids.
Totally. And it is that essence of just creating new patterns for ourselves. So what would you say to parents today, a simple tool that they can hold on to in those high stress moments of parenting to create that new pattern and to really embrace this idea of parenting as a practice?
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about this. If any of your people listen to my podcast, they are going to know exactly what I'm going to say. But I believe that the new patterns are developed not in the heat of the moment, right? The new patterns, that peaceful parenting, the positive disciplined parent that we want to grow into actually is developed outside of those hot moments. So the tool that I love to share with parents is to find a way, and I love, smartphones, right? They can, we love them and we hate them. So one thing that I love about them is that we can set alarms. We can decide the sound that the alarm makes. and we can label the alarm. So my invitation to your community is to get on your phone, pick 3 times a day to set an alarm and have the label say something meaningful to you that triggers how you want to be, right? We know how we don't want to be. I don't want to yell anymore. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel resentful. Okay, what do you want? Oh, I want to be a positive, disciplined parent. Okay, let's whittle that down. What are the ways of being that are going to support you in being that parent? And for me, I think of curiosity. For me, it's presence. For me, it's non-judgment. Other parents I've worked with have thought about, it's loving, kind, patient. So there's all sorts of ways of being that we can choose. I would invite you to pick 3, right? Pick 3 and just make that your label on your phone. And so when the alarm goes off, take a few moments and just breathe, find your feet, right? Relax your body and really visualize breathing in those ways of being. Even if you don't need them, even if you're in line at the grocery store, even if you're, making dinner or whatever, have that practice of oh, this is an opportunity for me to drop into the parent that I want to be. And the more we do that, then when we need it, it's more likely that we can go there versus that old way of being. So that's my favorite tool is the phone alarm.
That's awesome. What a great use of technology. And then just taking that moment to create the reality that we want. And we know from all this amazing brain science coming out, it's just the power of those words and the feeling to really change ourselves and to become the people that we want to be. And within that, there's lots of room for growth and mistakes and mess ups.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that that's really important, right? Because I've been doing this alarm thing for years and and there is still plenty of time that I am on automatic pilot. My son and I call it, the crazy train, right? Where the emotional freight train, where I'm in it, but I'm not recognizing that I'm in it, and so I could talk to you for an hour or 5 about all of this. But I think that's the thing. It's the practice, right? It's the practice. It's the practice. And when you screw up and you realize oh my gosh, I handled that really poorly. And yay, I get to make it right. I get to practice modeling what it looks like to reconnect and to mend the relationship and move on, because that's a gift in and of itself as well.
That's the practice right there.
That's the practice. That's the practice.
Sometimes as, parent educators, people might have the impression that we're the perfect parent experts. And
no.
That's so funny. So, could you share just a story that reminds you, just a personal story, maybe humorous, or about this parenting as a practice idea?
Totally. And I actually wrote a blog post about this. It's from a couple years ago. It's called Falling Apart, Growing Together. And so it's this story where my daughter, we have different relationships with our different children if we have more than one children. And, during this period of time, my daughter and we were doing a lot of this. She must have been 9 or 10, and she came home from school and she was just kind of in a mood. And I was really in my practice and really handling it really well and feeling really good about it. And she just kept coming at me, and I just kept my practice, right? Feeling really good about it. And then I had asked her to do something, and then she said, okay. And then she was outside in the street playing, and I went upstairs to find that she hadn't done it. And I just, all of that, I'm working so hard. It was like the dam came loose, and I opened the window of her bedroom and I said, hey, you need to come up here and take care of what you didn't do. And she, from the street, right, was like, I don't have to do anything. And I said, you need to come in right now. And she came up the stairs, and I was going down the stairs, and we met at that little landing. I mean, I'm getting hot just talking about this. And I said, you don't talk to me like that. And I got my super mean mom, those moments where your kids cower from fear. Yes. Right. And she was like, ah. And so she raced to her room, and I went to my room, and I was just, oh my gosh, it was right after this is hilarious. It was like a week after I had been through the advanced training for positive discipline to actually go from an educator to a trainer. I was feeling really good about myself. So I pulled it together. I did some deep breathing. I gave it some time. I went into her room where she was curled up in the fetal position. And I laid down with her and she let me hold her. And she hadn't let me hold her in a long time. And she let me cradle her and hold her. And we just laid there for a while. And then I said, and she said, "You were scary." And I said, "I know, and I'm really sorry, and it's not okay for me to treat you like that. And I'm going to continue to work on being the best parent I can be and to handle my emotions when they show up the way that they did so that I'm not hurtful, but helpful with you." And then we just laid there. And it was really, really powerful. And I felt more connected to her after than I had before. And I think that's really important for parents to hear, is this whole making it right, making amends, we call it in positive discipline, the 4 R's of recovery, or 3 or 5, it's always changing. The R's of recovery, like going through that process of owning your mistake, taking responsibility for it, reconciling, and then resolving. It's so powerful. And for me, the biggest piece of that, because when I first learned about it, I was like, oh, great, I'm going to be doing this all day long. And my kids are going to be like, oh, here comes mom making it right, But the power for me is in that last step where we say, this is what I'm going to do to help myself. Or let's work together to find a solution for next time, because we're going to be triggered again. We're going to have a problem to navigate again. So we've got to, in that process of making it right, also look for a resolution and declare, right? Declare to our kids, this is what I'm going to do to help myself be better. And it's amazing modeling for them as well.
It is, and that's the practice, the essence of it right there. I actually got teary when, you were saying that you went in and cuddled with your daughter and had that connecting moment after something that can feel so just honestly like horrible inside as a parent. And
well, couple that with the fact that I'm a positive disciplined parent educator. It's like, not easy for us.
But that is the practice. And within that practice, it's empowering for us and our children. And it's those mistakes that actually lend the opportunity for those connecting moments and to do things differently next time. And it takes courage, though. It takes courage. So the note I'd like to end on is just for all of us to recognize that parenting is a practice, and to really have the courage to look at those moments when you feel most hopeless or helpless or overwhelmed as a parent, and that potential that's in the moment. So Casey, if people want to connect with you, want to take classes, do coaching with you, how can they find you? And what are some invitations you have for 2017?
I have so many. I'm so excited. So they can find everything at joyfulcourage.com. Joyful Courage is the name of my business. I also do a weekly podcast, which Megan has actually been one of my guests. And that is like, I love my podcast. I get to interview amazing humans that inspire me. And you can,
and Dr. Laura Markham.
Oh my gosh. And this is going to, I know, it's crazy. Rebecca Ines was on, and I have Ross Green is my first show of 2017. And he wrote The Explosive Child, and he wrote Lost at School. And he has a new book called Raising Human Beings, which is amazing. So I can't believe that he's going to be my guest. So exciting. And so there's the podcast, and I write a blog, although I don't write as much as I should. I have a Facebook group called Live in Love with Joyful Courage that is active, has active members on there looking for support, celebrating each other. Really excited for 2017. I am launching a membership program. So and it's only the registration for this first quarter of the year is only happening the first week of January. So you have until Saturday, January 7th to register for that. And it's a monthly program. It goes for an entire year. And it fits perfectly with what we're talking about, because every time, it doesn't matter if it's a 7-week class or a 10-week online class, what I hear over and over is, this isn't enough. There's not enough time to practice and really let this sink in. And so with the help of the parents that I've been working with, I've developed this program to be really, really supportive. Every month is a different theme, but it all kind of builds on each other. I'm going to do webinars every month, 3 different group coaching calls, which I haven't quite figured out what that's going to be like, but it's going to be fabulous. Weekly emails, and there'll be a discussion forum actually on my website where we'll have different groups and everybody can chime in and create new threads. So
Great.
I am so excited. And you can find that information to register at joyfulcourage.com/LJC. So it's Living Joyful Courage, LJC. Joyfulcourage.com/LJC is how you can register for that. Oh, and awesome. And I have on my website as well, and joyfulcourage.com/shop. I have these little, I'm calling them mantra bracelets. And you can't see on the camera, but they're bracelets that have a message on them. Oh. And I actually have a friend in Albuquerque, New Mexico that makes them for me. And so I have one that says joyful and one that says courage, shocker. And I have one that says think tree, which is an activity that we do with parents to ground down, find our kind and firm body. Yeah, so I really just want to be in full support of the parents that I work with and be really transparent that I am in the practice with you. So find me. Yeah.
Yes, great. I will share all those links. And thank you so much for your time today and sharing your wisdom about parenting as a practice. Yay! All the best for 2017, Casey.
Thank you.
Okay. Take